Victorian fashion was so extreme that women's corsets could reduce their waist size by up to 10 inches. The average woman's natural waist was 27 to 29 inches, but society celebrated the ideal 18-inch waist, all while doctors raised concerns about breathing difficulties and circulation problems. If you enjoy these stories, hit subscribe. Also, drop your location in the comments. I'm always curious where everyone's listening from. We're heading to Victorian England in a minute. First though, get comfortable. Seriously, take a second, adjust whatever needs adjusting. You're not going to want to move once we start. The pressure around your ribs is the first thing you notice. Even before opening your eyes, you can feel it, like a giant hand squeezing your torso. Welcome to morning as a Victorian woman in 1870. You blink awake in a modest bedroom, lying on a horsehair mattress that crinkles when you shift. The room is cold, damn cold actually. The coal fire died hours ago and frost patterns decorate the inside of your window panes. Unlike your cozy blanket right now, the thin wool coverings barely trap any heat. Time to rise, ma'am. Your lady's maid, Agnes, has entered silently. She's already been up for hours, lighting fires, preparing your clothes, heating water. She looks exhausted, but that's not your concern right now. You have your own battle ahead. Is it really necessary today, you ask, eyeing the contraption Agnes is laying out on the dressing table. I'm only visiting Mother. Agnes gives you that look, the one that says, we have this conversation every morning. Your mother would be the first to notice if you weren't properly dressed, ma'am, she replies diplomatically. She's right, your mother would definitely notice and comment, and then tell everyone else she knows. The thought makes your stomach clench. The corset lies there like an instrument of torture, which honestly it basically is. Whalebone and steel designed to force your body into an impossible shape. Last week you heard about a woman whose corset was so tight that when she died they found her ribs had grown around it. Like a tree growing around a fence. Your body literally reshaping itself to accommodate this cage. Shall we begin? Agnes asks. First comes the chemise, a thin cotton undergarment that serves as a barrier between your skin and the corset. Then cotton drawers tied at the waist. Already you're warmer, silver linings, I guess. Agnes holds the corset up against your torso. It's a well-made piece, custom fitted last year when you still had dreams of achieving an 18-inch waist. You're hovering around 20 inches now, which your husband has deemed acceptable. How generous of him. Deep breath, ma'am, Agnes warns. You inhale as much as possible, knowing that soon breathing deeply won't be an option. Agnes wraps the corset around your torso and begins the lacing process. The first few tugs are manageable, just a gentle pressure, but as Agnes works her way down, each pull becomes more restrictive. Your ribs compress, your lungs can't fully expand, your internal organs are literally shifting position. A bit tighter, ma'am. The blue dress needs a smaller waist. Just a bit more, you gasp. Agnes braces her foot against the bedpost for leverage, pulling the laces with all her strength. You grip the bedpost, knuckles white. Jesus, you mutter under your breath. How is this fashion? Language, ma'am, Agnes reminds you, but there's sympathy in her voice. She's not immune. She wears a corset too, though a cheaper, less restrictive version. The pressure required for your waist would prevent her from completing her physically demanding work. With a final tug, Agnes ties off the laces. You try to breathe and find you can only take shallow sips of air. Your lower ribs are compressed almost to meeting in the middle. There now. Beautiful, Agnes says, steering you toward the mirror. The transformation is undeniable. Your waist is impossibly small, creating that coveted hourglass figure. But at what cost? You already feel lightheaded, and you haven't even gone downstairs yet. Dr. Harrison's warning echoes in your mind. "These contraptions are slowly killing you, ladies," he'd said during your last visit for female troubles. Your mother had been scandalized, insisting he was being dramatic. But when he showed you those medical drawings, the way organs get crushed and displaced, you couldn't unsee it. The women in your circle dismiss such warnings. "Men have always tried to control what we wear," your friend Elizabeth had said last week. "First they want us in corsets, then they claim to want us out of them for our health. Make up your minds, gentlemen." You had laughed along, but privately wondered if maybe the doctors had a point. Your monthly courses had become irregular and painful since tightening your corset to please your husband, and that fainting spell at the Hendersons' dinner party last month, definitely from lack of oxygen. "Now, for the petticoats," Agnes announces, holding up what looks like enough fabric to sail a small ship. Layer by layer, Agnes builds your silhouette. First, the cotton petticoat, then 2 more made of heavier material. Already, you're carrying several pounds of fabric, all hanging from your compressed waist. Your lower back begins to ache in protest. "I was reading about this American woman," you tell Agnes as she works. "Amelia Bloomer. She wears trousers under a shorter skirt. Can you imagine?" Agnes looks scandalized. Trousers on a lady. What would the neighbours say? "That's exactly what my husband said," you sigh. "But think how much easier it would be to move, to breathe, to exist." "Easier isn't always proper, Mum," Agnes says diplomatically, though you can see a flicker of curiosity in her eyes. Next comes your bustle, a metal cage that attaches at your lower back, creating that fashionable posterior shelf that men supposedly find attractive. It adds another pound of weight and makes sitting a strategic challenge. You'll spend the day perching on the edges of chairs or standing until your feet throb. The blue dress goes on last, a beautiful creation of silk and lace with 57 tiny buttons down the back that poor Agnes must fasten one by one. By the time she's done, your back is ramrod straight, your waist is cinched to painful proportions, and your lungs can only expand by about half their capacity. "There," Agnes says with satisfaction, "you look like a proper lady." You study your reflection. Yes, you've achieved the ideal Victorian silhouette. Tiny waist, ample bosom, wide hips. The dress is beautiful, but already spots dance before your eyes from shallow breathing. Your ribs send shooting pains with every movement. And you know that by evening the flesh under your corset will be raw and chafed, possibly bleeding in spots. Is beauty worth this? Agnes brings your jewellery next, a cameo brooch from your husband, earrings from your father, and a delicate gold chain. These small personal touches are the only parts of your appearance truly under your control. "Oh, I almost forgot," Agnes says, retrieving a small bottle from your dressing table. "Your mother sent this over. She says all the ladies are using it for a youthful complexion." You examine the bottle. Dr. Campbell's Arsenic Complexion Wafers. "Arsenic?" you ask, alarmed. "Isn't that poison?" "In large doses, ma'am, but these are perfectly safe in small amounts. The lady down the street has been taking them for months and her skin is like porcelain." You've heard the rumours, though. The woman 3 doors down who took similar wafers and ended up with tremors in her hands. The socialite who died suddenly after using arsenic powders for years. "I think I'll pass for today," you say, setting the bottle aside. Agnes looks worried. "Your mother will ask if you've tried them." Then let her ask. This small rebellion feels significant. You can't escape the corset. Not yet, anyway, but you can refuse to literally poison yourself for beauty. As Agnes styles your hair, you gaze out the window at the street below. A delivery boy races past on a bicycle, moving freely, breathing deeply. You feel a stab of envy so intense it takes you by surprise. "Do you ever wonder what it would be like," you ask Agnes suddenly, "to move through the world without all this?" Agnes pauses, hairpin in hand. Sometimes, ma'am, when I see my brother run across a field or climb a tree, she lowers her voice. And sometimes at night, I loosen my corset when no one's looking, just to remember what it feels like to take a real breath. This confession creates an unexpected moment of solidarity between you, two women separated by class but united by the same physical restrictions. Maybe someday, you say, though you don't finish the thought. Agnes adds the final touches to your hair, a complex arrangement of curls and twists that you couldn't possibly reproduce on your own, another way you're dependent on others just to present yourself acceptably to society. Ready to go downstairs, ma'am? You nod, though ready isn't quite the word. You're armoured, packaged, presented, but definitely not comfortable or free. You stand carefully, feeling the weight of the fabrics, the squeeze of the corset, the pinch of two small shoes. The day stretches before you, a series of restrictive spaces, limited movements, shallow breaths, and careful social performances. And tomorrow you'll do it all again. As you make your way toward the door, you catch sight of a pamphlet on your writing desk, something your husband's progressive cousin had slipped to you at last week's dinner party. The Rational Dress Society, the headline reads. You'd hidden it quickly, but the ideas inside have been haunting you. Could women really dress differently? Could you someday walk through the world without feeling like your body is in a cage? Agnes follows your gaze and quickly adjusts your skirt, drawing your attention away from the forbidden literature. Best not to dwell on such things, ma'am, she says quietly. Some battles can't be won in a day. You take as deep a breath as your corset allows and prepare to descend the stairs. One careful step at a time, as befits a proper Victorian lady. The weight of expectations feels heavier than all your clothing combined. Breakfast is a painful affair, not the food itself. Cook has prepared a lovely spread of toast, eggs, and kippers, but the actual process of eating while corseted is miserable. Your compressed stomach can only handle small bites, and even those sit uncomfortably. Your husband barely notices your discomfort. He's hidden behind his newspaper, occasionally making comments about politics or business that require no real response from you. This is probably a blessing. At least you don't have to make conversation while struggling to breathe. I'll be at the club until late, he announces, folding his paper. The Hendersons are coming for dinner tomorrow, so make sure you look presentable. The way his eyes flicker to your face makes his meaning clear. The Hendersons are influential, and Mrs. Henderson is known for her flawless complexion and fashionable appearance. You'll need to do better than just a corset tomorrow. After he leaves, you return to your dressing room where Agnes has laid out your beauty regimen. The array of bottles, pots, and tools looks more like a chemist's laboratory than cosmetics. Shall we begin with the face treatments, ma'am? Agnes asks. You nod, settling onto the stool before your vanity mirror. The woman who stares back at you is pale, not the fashionable porcelain pallor, but the sickly pallor of someone who rarely sees the sun. Dark circles rim your eyes from another night of uncomfortable sleep in your corset. Mrs. Henderson uses that new face cream, you muse. The one with... what is it called? Ammonia, ma'am, Agnes says, reaching for a white jar. Said to remove impurities from the skin. She unscrews the lid and the sharp, acrid smell makes your eyes water immediately. Inside is a white paste that supposedly bleaches the skin to the desired marble-like perfection. Are you sure this is safe? You ask, wrinkling your nose. Agnes hesitates. Lady Caroline swears by it, though her lady's maid told me in confidence that it burned her skin something awful the first week. And the alternative is... Agnes gestures to the array of other options, creams containing lead, mercury, or arsenic, all guaranteed to create that coveted deathly pallor that signifies you've never had to work outside in the sun. You know, Agnes says quietly, my grandmother used to make a face cream from beeswax and rosewater. Didn't turn you white as a ghost, but it kept her skin nice into old age. You consider this. A natural option sounds appealing, but would it be enough? Society doesn't want nice skin. It wants unnaturally pale, artificially perfect skin, the kind that shows you can afford to poison yourself slowly in the name of beauty. Let's try the ammonia cream, you decide, mentally preparing for the burn, but not too much. Agnes nods and dips her fingers into the jar, then begins applying the cream to your face in light circular motions. The burning sensation is immediate, a chemical fire across your skin. Your eyes water and your nose runs, but you force yourself to remain still. It's working, Ma'am, Agnes says encouragingly. Your skin is already turning whiter. Probably because all the blood is retreating in terror, you mutter, which makes Agnes stifle a laugh. Next comes the powder, a fine white dust that Agnes applies with a large puff. It contains bismuth, a heavy metal that gives that desired matte finish. You try not to think about how it's slowly absorbing into your skin day after day, year after year. Now for your eyes, ma'am? Agnes reaches for a small dropper bottle containing a clear liquid. Is that the Belladonna? Yes, ma'am, for brightening the eyes. You've used it before, drops made from deadly nightshade that dilate the pupils dramatically, creating a doe-eyed, luminous look that men find attractive. The side effects include blurred vision, sensitivity to light, and if used too frequently, blindness. But what's a little vision damage in the pursuit of beauty? Just one drop in each eye, you instruct, tilting your head back. Agnes carefully administers the drops. The familiar burning sensation follows, then the strange feeling of your pupils expanding beyond their natural size, letting in too much light. The world becomes slightly fuzzy around the edges. Beautiful, Agnes murmurs, like starlit pools. You blink rapidly, trying to clear your vision. This temporary beauty will make reading impossible for at least 3 hours, and you'll need to avoid bright windows. A small price to pay, you're told. Remember what happened to Lady Pembroke? You ask Agnes as she prepares the rouge pot. They say she went completely blind from Belladonna drops. I heard it was her own fault, Agnes replies, repeating the gossip of the servants' quarters, using them 3 times a day instead of once. You wonder what drove Lady Pembroke to such extremes. Was her husband particularly demanding? Did she feel the constant pressure to be more beautiful, more perfect, more doll-like for the male gaze? Or was she simply caught in the same beauty trap as all of you? Competing in an endless game where the rules were written by men and the players were all women. Now for your lips, ma'am. Agnes takes a small brush and dips it into a pot of red salve. This, at least, is relatively harmless, just beeswax tinted with carmine from crushed beetles. The irony isn't lost on you. The one beauty product that won't slowly poison you is made from insects. Agnes, you say suddenly as she applies the tint to your lips. Do you think our daughters will still be doing all this? 20, 30 years from now? Agnes pauses, brush in hand. Hard to say, ma'am. My mother wore a corset even tighter than yours. Said in her day they'd lace until someone fainted, then loosen it just enough to wake them up. That's horrible. That was fashion, Agnes shrugs. Though I did hear about some ladies starting a society against it all. The Rational something or other. Rational Dress Society, you supply, thinking of the pamphlet hidden in your desk drawer. Agnes nods. My cousin works for a lady who's joined it. Says they want women in shorter skirts and looser bodices. Some even wear trousers underneath like men. the idea is both scandalous and thrilling. To move freely, to breathe fully, to exist in your body rather than being packaged in it. What do you think would happen, you ask, genuinely curious, if I just didn't wear a corset one day? Agnes looks genuinely alarmed. Oh, ma'am, you couldn't. Your husband would notice straight away, and if you went out, why, everyone would talk. But what if all women decided at once they couldn't ostracize all of us? I suppose not, ma'am, but who'd be the first? That's the problem, isn't it? Someone has to go first. Someone has to brave the ridicule, the social suicide of defying convention. And despite your private rebellious thoughts, you know it won't be you. Not today, anyway. Now for your hair, ma'am, Agnes says, changing the subject. She picks up the curling tongs that have been heating by the fire. They're red hot, designed to create the tight ringlets currently in fashion. Your scalp still bears small scars from previous burns, an occupational hazard of Victorian hairstyling. Agnes is skilled, but accidents happen, especially when working with tools literally designed to burn. Have you heard about that new permanent waving machine? Agnes asks as she carefully wraps a strand of your hair around the hot metal. They say it can curl your hair for weeks, not just days. The Nestler machine? I read about it. Didn't the inventor burn his wife's hair off twice while perfecting it? That's what I heard, Agnes confirms with a slight smile. Must have been quite devoted to him to let him try a third time. You share a laugh at this, a rare moment of feminine solidarity across class lines. Both of you understand the painful absurdity of what women endure. The smell of singed hair fills the room as Agnes continues her work. It's not burning, just cooking slightly. Another unpleasant aspect of beauty that everyone pretends not to notice. Your friend Elizabeth visited Paris last season and returned with tales of women who coloured their hair with dyes containing lead, mercury and silver nitrate. Some had developed strange symptoms, trembling hands, headaches, even partial paralysis, but their hair was fashionably coloured, so many considered it a reasonable trade. Did you see Mrs. Whitmore at the Johnsons' dinner? Agnes asks as she works. Her new lady's maid used to work for an actress. Did her hair with something special. It did look unusually red, you recall. Very striking. Apparently it's henna mixed with something else. Can't recall the name, but her maid said it's turning Mrs. Whitmore's hair brittle as straw. Coming out in handfuls it is. You wince, not just from the hot curling tongs near your ear. Is there anything we do that doesn't eventually harm us? Agnes considers this seriously. Sleep, perhaps, though my mother always slept in papillotes to curl her hair and woke with awful headaches from the tight wrapping, with your hair finally arranged in an elaborate style that will require you to sleep sitting up to preserve it. Agnes steps back to admire her work. Perfect, ma'am. Now for the finishing touch. From a velvet-lined box, she removes your pearl earrings, heavy pendants that will drag at your earlobes all day, eventually stretching the holes until they tear, as happened to your grandmother. Beauty is pain, after all. I don't think I need the earrings today, you decide. Just visiting mother, after all. Agnes looks surprised but pleased. These small rebellions feel significant, even if they're tiny in the grand scheme of things. As Agnes helps you rise, you catch sight of yourself in the full-length mirror. The transformation is complete. You've gone from a natural human woman to a Victorian ideal, wasp-waisted, pale-skinned, bright-eyed, with elaborate curls and artificially reddened lips. You look beautiful by the standards of your time. You also look like you're slowly killing yourself, which, in a way, you are. The door opens and your lady's maid from the neighbouring estate enters, looking distraught. Begging your pardon, ma'am, but could Agnes come quick? It's Lady Russell. She's collapsed again. Agnes looks to you for permission, which you quickly grant. What happened? You ask the maid. Her corset, ma'am, tightened it more than usual for the garden party. Couldn't breathe proper, and when she tried to sit for tea, she just folded. Doctor's been called, but the master is in a state. You exchange a look with Agnes. This happens more often than anyone acknowledges. Women fainting from oxygen deprivation, their compressed organs simply giving up. Usually they're loosened, revived and sent right back to the same practices that caused the problem. Tell Lady Russell I'll call tomorrow, you tell the maid. And Agnes, perhaps bring her that pamphlet from my desk. Agnes's eyes widen slightly, but she nods, a small act of rebellion passing forbidden literature. But maybe, just maybe, if enough women start questioning these practices. After Agnes leaves, you stand alone in your dressing room, surrounded by bottles of poisons disguised as beauty aids. Your skin tingles from the ammonia cream. Your eyes struggle to focus from the Belladonna. Your ribs ache from the corset. Your scalp stings from the hot tongs. All of this suffering for beauty, all of this danger for social acceptance. You think of your mother enduring these same rituals for 30 years. You think of Lady Russell, unconscious from a too tight corset. You think of the pamphlet now making its way to another potential convert to rational dress. Change comes slowly, then all at once. Perhaps you're witnessing the slow part, the quiet questioning, the private rebellions, the whispered conversations between women about whether there might be another way to exist in the world. You take a final look in the mirror. Today, you'll play by society's rules. You'll visit your mother corseted, painted and proper, but you've refused the arsenic wafers. You've skipped the heavy earrings. You've passed along dangerous literature. Small acts of rebellion, but they have to start somewhere. With careful, measured steps, the only kind possible in your restrictive clothing, you make your way downstairs to begin your day, wondering if your daughter or granddaughter might someday walk freely, breathe deeply, and exist in her body as nature intended. It seems an impossible dream, but then again, all change begins as an impossible dream. The carriage ride to your mother's home is uncomfortable. Each bump in the road jars your compressed organs, sending small shocks of pain through your abdomen. You try to sit perfectly straight, as slouching in a corset creates its own special kind of torture, the rigid boning digging into your flesh like knives. Your mother's home appears around the corner, a respectable townhouse with lace curtains visible through gleaming windows, the perfect Victorian home designed to showcase the perfect Victorian wife who maintains it. Your mother greets you in the parlour, her own waist impossibly tiny for a woman in her 50s. You wonder how many decades her organs have been compressed, reshaped, rearranged within her body. Has she ever taken a full breath? You can't remember ever seeing it. Darling, she says, kissing your cheek, you look acceptable, though your complexion could use some help. Have you tried those arsenic wafers I sent over? Not yet, mother, you reply. I've been feeling a bit unwell. She frowns. All the more reason to use them. Nothing enhances a woman's beauty like a touch of illness. Men adore the delicate look. She leans closer. Mrs. Carrington has been taking them for months and received 3 marriage proposals for her daughters already this season. You don't mention that Mrs. Carrington's youngest daughter confided in you that she's been coughing blood recently. Beauty has its price, and in Victorian England that price is often paid in health. I've come for your advice, actually, you say, changing the subject. The Hendersons are coming to dinner tomorrow, and you know how particular they are. Your mother brightens immediately. If there's one thing she excels at, it's managing a proper Victorian household. You must impress them, she says firmly. A woman is judged by her home as much as her appearance. It reflects your capabilities as a wife. And so begins a lengthy lecture on household management, the backbone of a Victorian woman's existence. While men run the outside world, women are expected to create perfect domestic sanctuaries. This is no small task, even with servants to do the physical labour. Have cook prepare something impressive, but not ostentatious, your mother advises. You don't want to appear as if you're trying too hard. Perhaps the duck with cherry sauce, followed by a Charlotte Russe. You nod, mentally adding these items to your list. Maintaining the perfect balance is exhausting, impressive enough to show your husband's prosperity, but not so lavish that you appear nouveau riche or wasteful. And make sure the parlour is immaculate, she continues. Mrs. Henderson has been known to run her finger along mantelpieces when she thinks no one is looking. You suppress a sigh. I'll speak to the housekeeper. Do more than speak, darling. Inspect everything yourself. A proper mistress knows every inch of her domain. This is the expectation, that even with a full staff of servants, you will personally oversee every detail. Your role is not to do the work, but to ensure it's done perfectly. An impossible standard that keeps you constantly vigilant, constantly anxious. Remember, your mother says, the angel of the house must create a sanctuary for her husband away from the harshness of the business world. The angel of the house, that Victorian ideal of womanhood that's been drilled into you since childhood. The perfect wife who maintains a perfect home, all while appearing effortlessly beautiful, unfailingly pleasant, and eternally selfless. A domestic goddess who exists only to make others comfortable while ignoring her own discomfort. And how is Henry, your mother asks, referring to your husband? Working hard, I assume. Very hard, you reply automatically. He's at his club this evening. Business matters. Your mother nods approvingly. As it should be, a man needs his freedom, and a wise wife never questions his absences. You think of Henry's late nights, the perfume that sometimes clings to his clothes, the lipstick stain you once found on his handkerchief. Your mother's generation would say it's simply a man's nature, something to be ignored in exchange for financial security and social standing. Now, about the dinner service, your mother continues, launching into detailed instructions about silver placement and napkin folding. By the time you leave your mother's home, your head is spinning with instructions and reminders. The weight of expectations feels even heavier than your corset and layers of clothing. Back at your own house, you find the housekeeper, Mrs. Peters, waiting for you with a worried expression. Begging your pardon, ma'am, but we've had an issue with the kitchen range. Cook says it's smoking something terrible. And so begins the real work of being the Victorian angel of the house. For the next several hours, you move from crisis to crisis. The kitchen range needs cleaning, but the chimney sweep can't come until Thursday. You'll need to find an emergency replacement before the Hendersons arrive. The parlour curtains have a small stain that everyone missed. They'll need to be taken down and cleaned immediately. The fishmonger delivered inferior quality salmon. You'll have to send someone to the market first thing tomorrow for replacements. One of the housemaids is showing signs of consumption. Do you dismiss her immediately to protect the household, or allow her to stay until she finds new employment? Each decision falls to you, not the physical labour, you have servants for that, but the mental load of managing this domestic machine, and all while looking perfectly composed, never letting anyone see you sweat beneath your layers of proper clothing. The table linens, ma'am, Mrs. Peters says, bringing you a selection. Which would you prefer for tomorrow's dinner? You examine each option carefully. This seemingly small decision could impact how the Hendersons perceive your entire household. Too ornate suggests trying to impress. Too simple implies carelessness. This one, you decide, selecting a cream damask with subtle embroidery. And the silver candlesticks, I think, but not the new ones. We don't want to appear boastful. Mrs. Peters nods approvingly. She understands the complex social calculations as well as you do. And shall I have the parlour fire lit an hour before they arrive? Mrs. Henderson is known to feel the cold. Yes, and make sure the drawing room is slightly warmer than the dining room. We want them comfortable throughout the evening. These minutiae, fire temperatures, linen choices, silver selections, consume your day. Your corseted body moves from room to room, inspecting, directing, ensuring that every detail is perfect. This is your domain, your purpose, your prison. You pause in the drawing room, suddenly light-headed. The combination of restricted breathing and constant movement is taking its toll. Spots dance before your eyes, and you reach for a chair. "Ma'am?" Mrs. Peters appears in the doorway, concerned. "Are you unwell?" "Just a moment of weakness," you assure her, though your vision is still blurry. "Perhaps I'll rest before dinner." But there's no time for rest. The household accounts need reviewing, tomorrow's menu must be finalised, and you need to write several social correspondence letters before evening. This is the hidden labour of Victorian womanhood, the constant mental and emotional work behind the facade of effortless grace. Men may mock women's leisure, but they don't see the complex machinery you maintain. In your private study, you review the household accounts with meticulous care. Every penny must be accounted for, every expenditure justified. Your husband provides an allowance for household expenses, and you're expected to work miracles with it. The butcher has raised his prices again. The coal delivery was short by nearly a bucket. One of the kitchen maids broke a teacup from the good service. Each entry requires a decision. A solution. You're essentially running a small business, but without the recognition or authority that would come with a formal business role. Instead, your success is measured by invisibility, the smooth running of a household where problems are solved before anyone notices them. "Ma'am, your lady's maid has returned from Lady Russell's. I delivered that pamphlet as you asked." "And how is Lady Russell?" "Recovered, ma'am, but shaken. The doctor advised her to loosen her stays, but her husband," Agnes pauses, then finishes diplomatically, "prefers her current silhouette. You understand the unspoken reality. Lady Russell will continue to risk her health because her husband values her appearance over her well-being. It's a bargain most of you have made." "She was most interested in the pamphlet," Agnes adds quietly. "Asked if I might bring more information next time I visit." A small victory, another potential ally in the quiet rebellion. You nod, pleased, then return to your accounts. By the time evening arrives, you've solved a dozen household crises, reviewed the entire menu for tomorrow's dinner, written 5 social letters, organised the flower arrangements, and inspected every room the Hendersons might possibly enter. All this while restricted by your corset, dress, and social expectations of proper feminine behaviour. You haven't raised your voice, shown frustration, or admitted to any physical discomfort. The perfect angel of the house, your husband returns home as you're taking a rare moment of rest in the drawing room. "The house looks acceptable," he comments, which from him is high praise. "I trust everything is prepared for tomorrow?" "Yes, of course," you reply, not mentioning the hours of work, the dozen decisions, the physical toll. "Good. The Hendersons are important connections. Mr. Henderson could be very useful to my business ventures. And there it is, the real purpose of your domestic labour. Not your comfort, not even really his, but the advancement of his social and business standing. Your home is a stage set for his ambitions, and you are both the stage manager and a principal actor." "Oh, And Margaret, he adds casually, wear the blue silk tomorrow. It gives you a more youthful appearance. You nod, though the blue silk requires an even tighter corset. You'll need to start lacing earlier to acclimate your body to the additional restriction. Perhaps you'll skip breakfast entirely. It's impossible to eat in that particular corset anyway. I thought I might invite Lady Russell to tea next week, you say carefully. She's been unwell. Your husband frowns. I've heard concerning things about the Russells. He mentioned that she's been reading some rather inappropriate materials, feminist nonsense about rational dress or some such. Your heart beats faster. Has he somehow discovered your own interest in the movement? You keep your expression neutral. How shocking, you murmur. I had no idea. Best to limit your association with her, I think. We don't need those sorts of radical ideas in our household. You nod again, the perfect obedient wife, while internally calculating how you might still communicate with Lady Russell without your husband's knowledge. The ladies' charitable committee, perhaps. He never pays attention to those womanly activities. I believe I'll retire early, you say. Tomorrow will be quite demanding. He waves a dismissive hand already buried in his newspaper. Your domestic labours are invisible to him, both the physical toll and the mental load. He sees only the results: a well-managed home, an attractively presented wife, a social reputation that benefits his business interests. Agnes helps you prepare for bed, a process almost as involved as dressing. Each hairpin must be carefully removed to preserve tomorrow's hairstyle. Your face must be cleaned of powders and paints. Your corset finally can be loosened. The relief is immediate and almost painful in itself. Blood rushing back to compressed areas, organs shifting tentatively back toward their natural positions. You take a deep breath, your first full inhalation since morning. Will that be all, ma'am? Agnes asks, folding your discarded clothing. Yes, thank you, Agnes. You pause, then add, could you perhaps find more of those pamphlets? Lady Russell isn't the only one who might be interested. Agnes smiles slightly. I believe I could, ma'am. My cousin knows a lady who attends their meetings. Another small conspiracy, another tiny rebellion. Not enough to change your life today, but perhaps enough to plant seeds for tomorrow. Alone in your bed, you rub the raw marks on your ribs where the corset has dug into your flesh all day. Tomorrow you'll do it all again. The physical restrictions, the household management, the performance of perfect Victorian womanhood. But tonight, in these precious hours of relative freedom, you imagine a different world, one where women can breathe freely, move comfortably, and exist as full human beings rather than decorative angels of the house. It seems impossible, but then all change begins as an impossible dream. Morning arrives too soon. Your body aches from yesterday's constriction, but there's no time for recovery. Today brings the Henderson dinner, a social obligation that could advance your husband's business interests or damage them, depending on your performance as hostess. Agnes arrives with a cup of weak tea. All your compressed stomach can handle this early. We'll need to start earlier with the corset today, ma'am, she reminds you. The blue silk requires a smaller waist. You nod, dreading what's to come. The blue silk dress was made when you were younger, before 2 pregnancies had changed your body. Achieving the necessary silhouette will require extreme measures. There's something else, ma'am, Agnes says hesitantly. I've heard the Henderson ladies have adopted some new fashion from Paris, something called a health corset. Health corset? You're immediately interested. What makes it healthier? It's cut differently, ma'am. Supports from the shoulders rather than just squeezing the waist. Ladies say they can breathe better in it. A corset that allows breathing. What a revolutionary concept. Do you think we could find one before tonight? Agnes shakes her head regretfully. Not in time, ma'am. But I've made some inquiries for the future. This small act of initiative from your lady's maid touches you. Agnes is becoming an ally in your quiet rebellion against the more dangerous aspects of fashion. Thank you, Agnes. Now let's get this torture device on, shall we? Today's corseting is worse than usual. Agnes has to brace her foot against your dressing table for leverage as she pulls the laces. You grip the bedpost so hard your knuckles turn white. "I can't," you gasp at one point, spots dancing before your eyes. "It's too tight." "Just a bit more, ma'am," Agnes encourages. "We're almost there." The final pull brings tears to your eyes. Your waist is now impossibly small, your breathing reduced to shallow pants. You feel lightheaded already, and the day has barely begun. 19 inches, Agnes announces with professional satisfaction. Smaller than last time you wore the blue silk. You try to feel proud of this achievement, as society expects. Instead, you feel dizzy and slightly nauseated. The pain will subside, Agnes assures you, though both of you know this isn't entirely true. The pain merely evolves from sharp and immediate to dull and chronic. Your body screaming its protest in whatever way it can. Once dressed, you force yourself to eat a few bites of toast, though there's hardly room in your compressed stomach. You'll need some sustenance to get through the day of preparations ahead. In the drawing room, you find your two daughters with their governess. Eleanor, 14, is already wearing a training corset, less restrictive than an adult's, but designed to gradually mould her growing body into the desired shape. Emma, just 7, still enjoys the freedom of childhood clothing, though in a few short years she too will begin the process of physical restriction. "Mother, you look beautiful," Eleanor says dutifully, having already learned the expected compliments. "Thank you, dear." You study your older daughter, noticing how she sits perfectly straight, never leaning back against the chair. Her training corset doesn't allow it. Already she's learning that comfort must be sacrificed for appearance. Later that morning, you visit the milliner to collect your new hat for church on Sunday. The fashionable creation sits like a small garden on your head, complete with silk flowers, stuffed birds, and decorative feathers. "The latest style from Paris," the milliner assures you, adjusting the angle. "The birds are particularly fine, genuine hummingbirds from South America." You study your reflection, admiring the craftsmanship while trying to ignore what it represents. Entire species of birds are being hunted to near extinction for ladies' hats. Some estimates suggest that 50 million birds are killed annually for the millinery trade. It's an environmental catastrophe disguised as fashion. "And these?" You point to the foot-long hat pins needed to secure this creation to your hair. "Stainless steel with pearl tops," the milliner says proudly, "strong enough to hold the hat in any weather." You don't mention the news story you read recently. A woman whose hatpin accidentally stabbed a man on a crowded omnibus, causing a serious injury. Some cities have begun passing ordinances limiting hatpin length or requiring protective tips, but fashion resists these safety measures. "And will you be wanting the matching parasol, ma'am?" the milliner asks hopefully. You decline. One dangerous fashion accessory is enough for today. Back home, preparations for the Henderson dinner are in full swing. The house smells of beeswax polish and cooking, and servants hurry about with last-minute tasks. You supervise it all while fighting the discomfort of your too-tight corset, which seems to grow worse as the day progresses. By mid-afternoon, you retreat to your bedroom for a brief rest, a necessary concession to your physical state. Lying down in a tightly laced corset is its own special form of torture, so you recline carefully on a chaise lounge, propped up by pillows. Agnes enters with a concerned expression. "The mistress next door sent this over, ma'am. Thought you might want to see it." She hands you a newspaper clipping about a young woman who died after a dancing party. The coroner's report cited tight lacing as a contributing factor. Her waist had been compressed to 17 inches, causing her organs to be dangerously displaced. During the exertion of dancing, she collapsed and could not be revived. 17 inches, you murmur, thinking of the women you know who achieve even smaller measurements. And still women continue the practice. It's expected, isn't it? Agnes says simply. No one wants to be the first to stop. The door opens again, and your younger daughter Emma runs in, then stops abruptly at the sight of you in your formal dress. Mama, why do you look so different? She asks with childish directness. You smile. It's a special dress for important guests. But your middle looks wrong. Emma frowns. Are you sick? Out of the mouths of babes. You exchange glances with Agnes. How do you explain to a child that yes, you are making yourself sick, compressing your organs, restricting your breathing, risking your health, all for the sake of a silhouette deemed attractive by society? It's just fashion, darling, you say finally. When you're older, you'll understand. But you hope she won't understand. You hope that by the time Emma is grown, the fashions will have changed, that she'll never know the pain of tight lacing or the danger of lead-based face powder. Emma seems unconvinced, but accepts your answer for now. After she leaves, Agnes helps you to your feet. Time to finish dressing, ma'am. The Hendersons will arrive in 2 hours. The final preparations are torturous. Your hair must be styled elaborately, requiring you to sit perfectly still while Agnes works with hot curling tongs. Each movement sends pain through your compressed torso. Your face must be painted to achieve the fashionable pallor. Belladonna drops sting your eyes but create the desired dilated pupils. By the time you're fully dressed, you can barely breathe. The weight of your clothing, corset, petticoats, bustle, dress, comes to nearly 15 pounds, all hanging from your constricted waist. Moving requires careful calculation. Sitting must be done precisely, perching rather than truly resting. You look perfect, ma'am, Agnes assures you, standing back to admire her work. Perfect, but at what cost? Your ribs throb where the corset has shifted them. Your lungs can only partially inflate. Your internal organs are compressed into unnatural positions. Even your skin burns from the chemicals meant to whiten it. The first warning sign comes as you descend the stairs to greet your husband. A wave of dizziness hits, causing you to grip the banister. Your vision tunnels briefly, the edges going dark. Are you well? Your husband asks, noticing your pause. Just a moment of light-headedness, you assure him with a practiced smile. It's past now. He frowns slightly. You can't afford to be ill tonight. The Hendersons are crucial connections. Not concern for your health, but for the social impression you'll make. You swallow your resentment and nod agreeably. I'm perfectly fine, you lie. Just excited for the evening. The Hendersons arrive precisely on time. Mr. Henderson, a business associate of your husband, Mrs. Henderson, a social climber of renowned determination, and their 2 daughters, both of marriageable age and corseted to painful perfection. My dear, you look wonderful, Mrs. Henderson gushes, air kissing your cheeks. That shade of blue is so becoming. As does your gown, you reply automatically. Is that the new Worth design from Paris? She preens. Indeed it is. Frederick insisted, though the cost was shocking. This is the expected exchange. Compliments, subtle boasting about expenditure, the performance of femininity, all while both of you struggle to breathe in your fashionable cages. Dinner proceeds according to rigid Victorian protocol. The men discuss business and politics. The women maintain pleasant, empty conversation about fashion, children, and household matters. The younger Henderson girl, Clara, seems particularly uncomfortable, shifting constantly in her seat. "Are you well, Miss Clara?" you ask quietly during a lull in conversation. She blushes. "Quite well, thank you. Just a new corset. Mother insisted I needed a smaller waist before the season begins." You recognize the signs, the pallor beneath her rouge, the shallow breathing, the way she barely touches her food. Clara has been laced too tightly, probably for the first time. You remember your own introduction to extreme corseting, the days of nausea and dizziness until your body surrendered to its new shape. "Perhaps some air would help," you suggest. "We could step onto the terrace for a moment." Mrs. Henderson frowns. Clara is perfectly fine, just a bit of maidenly excitement about her upcoming debut. The message is clear. No acknowledgement of physical distress is permitted. The polite fiction must be maintained. Women do not suffer for beauty. They achieve it effortlessly. As dessert is served, you notice Clara's face growing paler. Her breathing becomes more rapid, her movements more rigid, classic signs of what doctors call corset syndrome, the body rebelling against its unnatural confinement. Before you can intervene, Clara suddenly gasps, her face now ghostly white. She attempts to stand, then crumples to the floor in a dead faint. The table erupts in controlled chaos. Mrs. Henderson fusses ineffectually. Mr. Henderson looks annoyed at the interruption. Your husband signals for servants to assist. "Loosen her stays," you instruct the maids who rush to help. Quickly, Mrs. Henderson looks scandalized. "In mixed company? Surely not. Would you prefer she suffocate?" you ask sharply, your own discomfort making you less diplomatic than usual. The men retreat to the drawing room while you and Mrs. Henderson oversee Clara's recovery. Once her corset is loosened, revealing angry red welts where the boning has dug into her flesh, she begins to revive. "I'm so sorry," Clara whispers, tears of embarrassment in her eyes. "Nonsense," her mother says briskly. "Just a momentary weakness. Once you're used to proper lacing, these episodes will pass." You meet Clara's eyes and see the hopelessness there. This is her future, years of gradual physical damage in pursuit of the ideal silhouette, just as it has been yours. When the ladies rejoin the gentlemen for coffee, Clara's corset has been retightened, though not quite to its previous extreme. She moves carefully, like someone recovering from an injury, which, in a sense, she is. "All resolved?" your husband asks pleasantly, as if a young woman hadn't just collapsed from socially mandated body modification. "Completely," Mrs. Henderson assures him, "just youthful delicacy." The rest of the evening passes without incident, though you notice Clara barely speaks. Her focus is entirely on maintaining her composure while fighting the restrictions of her clothing. As you bid the Hendersons goodbye at the end of the evening, you press a small card into Clara's hand. On it, you've written the name of a dressmaker who secretly creates less restrictive corsets, one Agnes discovered through her growing network of fashion rebels. Clara glances at it, then quickly tucks it into her glove, giving you a grateful look. Another small act of rebellion. Another potential ally in the quiet revolution. After the guests leave, your husband pronounces the evening a success. Henderson seemed impressed. "I think we can expect an invitation to partner in the new venture." You nod, too exhausted to speak much. Your body screams for release from its constraints. Every breath is a struggle. You've been corseted for nearly 14 hours now, and the physical toll is mounting. "You did well," he adds, which from him is high praise. Though I noticed you seemed rather concerned about the Henderson girl. No need to make such a fuss over a simple fainting spell. Women are naturally delicate creatures. You bite back the response that women aren't naturally delicate at all. They're made delicate by practices like tight lacing. Instead, you smile and agree, playing your expected role until the end of the evening. Finally, blessedly, you can retreat to your bedroom. Agnes helps you undress, carefully unlacing the corset that has been your prison all day. "Oh, ma'am," she says softly, seeing the deep red grooves and bruised skin beneath. "This is worse than usual. The price of a 19-inch waist," you say with grim humour. "Help me to bed, please." As Agnes assists you, you catch sight of yourself in the mirror, your torso temporarily deformed by hours of compression, the natural curves of your body replaced by an artificial shape dictated by fashion. "Do you think it will ever change, Agnes?" you ask, wincing as you settle into bed. "This tyranny of fashion?" Agnes considers this as she prepares your nightclothes. "My grandmother wore stays all her life, but nothing like what ladies wear now. And my mother says when she was a girl, the fashions were looser. Things do change, Mom. Perhaps they'll change again." "I hope so," you murmur, thinking of your daughters, especially young Emma, still free but destined for the same constraints. For their sakes, if not for ours. Agnes extinguishes the lamps, leaving you in darkness. Your body gradually relaxes, organs slowly shifting back toward their natural positions. The relief is exquisite yet painful, like blood returning to a limb that's fallen asleep. In the darkness, you make a decision. Tomorrow, you'll write to that address Agnes found, the meeting place of the Rational Dress Society. You'll make inquiries about healthier corset designs. Small steps, perhaps, but steps nonetheless. You drift towards sleep, imagining a world where women can breathe freely, move naturally, exist comfortably in their own bodies. A world where beauty doesn't require slow self-destruction. It seems an impossible dream, particularly in this rigid Victorian society. But then, all change begins with an impossible dream. Weeks pass, each day bringing the same routine of constraint, both physical and social. But beneath the surface, small changes are brewing. Agnes has become your willing conspirator, bringing pamphlets and whispered information about the growing movement for dress reform. You've made cautious inquiries through the Ladies' Charitable Committee, finding other women who share your quiet discontent with fashion's more dangerous demands. Today, an envelope arrives addressed in unfamiliar handwriting. Your husband is at his club, so you open it without hesitation. The Rational Dress Society welcomes inquiries from ladies concerned with health and comfort in women's attire, meeting Thursday next, 3 o'clock, Mrs. Wilberforce's residence. An address in Bloomsbury follows, a respectable but progressive neighbourhood. This is it. Your first opportunity to connect directly with the movement you've been secretly following. "Agnes," you call, trying to contain your excitement. "Please check my social calendar for Thursday afternoon." Agnes appears, a knowing look in her eyes. "You're free until dinner, Mum. Shall I arrange the carriage?" "Yes, but discreetly. I'll tell my husband I'm attending the hospital charity committee." This small deception feels justified. Your husband, like most Victorian men, would never understand why his wife would want to associate with those radical women who challenge fashion's dictates. Thursday arrives with agonizing slowness. You dress more simply than usual, selecting your least restrictive corset, still uncomfortable by modern standards, but positively liberating compared to your formal stays. How do I look? You ask Agnes nervously. Not too conventional, I hope, but not scandalously bohemian either. Agnes studies you with an appraising eye. Respectable but open-minded, ma'am. Perfect for a first meeting. The journey to Bloomsbury feels like an adventure, though you're merely travelling across London. Your heart races with a combination of excitement and anxiety. What if someone recognises you? What if word gets back to your husband? What if these women are truly the dangerous radicals that society portrays them to be? Mrs. Wilberforce's home appears perfectly ordinary from the outside, a handsome townhouse with lace curtains and polished brass. No hint that inside, revolutionary ideas about women's clothing are being discussed. A maid shows you to a drawing room where about 15 women have gathered. They range in age from young debutantes to grandmothers, and in class from what appear to be shop assistants to ladies of considerable means. What unites them is a shared interest in freeing women's bodies from fashion's most dangerous demands. "Welcome," says a stately woman who introduces herself as Lady Harberton, one of the society's founders. "We're always pleased to see new faces." You murmur your name, relieved when it elicits no particular reaction. Your social circle hasn't extended to these progressive women before. "Please, sit down," Lady Harberton indicates. "We were just discussing the rational dress exhibition planned for next month." You take a seat, noticing immediately that many of the women are sitting differently than in your usual social gatherings. They lean back comfortably, they cross their legs, they move with a freedom that suggests less restrictive undergarments. "Our new friend might appreciate seeing some examples of rational dress," suggests a younger woman. "Constance, would you do the honours?" A striking woman with intelligent eyes stands and moves to a side room. She returns carrying several garments which she lays out on a table. "I'm Constance Wilde," she introduces herself, and you recognise the name with a start. The wife of Oscar Wilde, the famous writer and aesthete. These are examples of what we consider more rational alternatives to current fashion. She holds up the first item, a corset unlike any you've seen before. "This is what we call a health corset," Constance explains. "Note how it supports from the shoulders rather than compressing the waist. It allows for natural breathing and movement while still providing the structure that many women feel they need." You examine it with interest, noting the practical design. It would still shape the figure, but without the extreme compression that makes traditional corsets so dangerous. "And this," she continues, "is perhaps our most controversial item, the divided skirt." She holds up what appears at first glance to be an ordinary skirt, but upon closer examination reveals itself to be very wide-legged trousers disguised as a skirt. "For cycling, walking and general freedom of movement," Constance explains. "All the modesty of a skirt with the practicality of trousers." A murmur runs through the room. Even in this progressive gathering, the idea of women wearing anything resembling trousers is shocking to some. "I wore a similar garment to a restaurant last month," Lady Harberton says with a mischievous smile. "They refused to serve me in the ladies' dining room. Said I wasn't properly dressed, can you imagine? 15 yards of fabric covering every inch of my legs, and I was considered improperly dressed." Laughter ripples through the group. There's a camaraderie here, a shared understanding of fashion's absurdities that you've never experienced in your usual social circles. "What brings you to us today?" Lady Harberton asks you directly. "Most women find us through some personal crisis with conventional fashion." All eyes turn to you, curious but supportive. You take a deep breath, easier in your less restrictive corset, and find yourself sharing the story of Clara Henderson's fainting spell, your own daily discomfort, and your concern for your daughter's future. I don't want Emma to grow up thinking she must torture herself to be acceptable, you finish. But I don't know how to change things for her when the entire society enforces these standards. Nods of understanding greet your words. Many of these women have daughters or nieces of their own. That's why we exist, Constance Wilde says gently. Not to force change overnight, but to create alternatives, to educate and to support each other in making healthier choices. May I see the health corset again? You ask. I'd be interested in trying one. For the next hour, you're introduced to a world of alternative fashion you never knew existed. Lightweight fabrics that don't require heavy petticoats, boots designed for walking rather than just appearance, hats that can be secured without dangerous hat pins. Most importantly, you're surrounded by women who question the status quo, who prioritize health and comfort alongside appearance, who believe women deserve better than slow self-destruction in the name of beauty. We're not suggesting women abandon beauty, Lady Harberton explains as tea is served. We're simply advocating for a beauty that doesn't compromise health. My husband designs aesthetically pleasing clothing that doesn't torture the wearer, Constance adds with a smile. Oscar believes beauty should never require suffering. You think of your blue silk dress requiring that punishing 19-inch waist. Could there truly be beautiful clothing that allows for natural breathing, comfortable movement, healthy internal organs? As the meeting continues, practical matters are discussed. How to order healthier clothing options discreetly. How to introduce rational dress ideas to skeptical friends and family. How to handle social criticism when making even small changes to conventional dress. Many of us begin with underwear, an older woman advises, a less restrictive corset, more reasonable petticoats, things that improve comfort without creating social scandal. This approach appeals to you. You're not ready to wear divided skirts in public, but you could certainly adopt a healthier corset for everyday wear. By the time the meeting ends, you've ordered a health corset, subscribed to the Rational Dress Society's discreet newsletter, and made connections with several women who live near enough to maintain regular contact. Will we see you at next month's meeting? Lady Harberton asks, as you prepare to leave. We'll be discussing rational dress for young girls, perhaps relevant for your daughter. Yes, you decide. I'll be here. The journey home feels different. You sit more comfortably in the carriage, already imagining how much better you'll feel in a less restrictive corset. For the first time in years, you feel a sense of hope, not just for yourself, but for Emma and her generation. Agnes is waiting when you return, eager for details. You share everything in the privacy of your dressing room, watching her face light up at the possibilities. Do you think they make such corsets for ladies' maids? She asks hopefully. I'll inquire, you promise, or perhaps have one made for you when mine arrives. This conspiracy between you deepens your bond. No longer merely mistress and servant, you're allies in a quiet rebellion against fashion's most harmful demands. Your husband notices nothing different when he returns home. You play your role perfectly, the attentive wife, the accomplished hostess, the social asset. But beneath the perfect exterior, something has changed. You've found your voice, connected with like-minded women, taken your first small step toward freedom. 2 weeks later, a plain package arrives. Agnes brings it to your dressing room with barely contained excitement. Is it the health corset? You confirm, unwrapping it carefully. Let's try it immediately. The difference is remarkable. The new corset still provides structure and some shaping, but it distributes pressure more evenly, supports from the shoulders, and allows your lungs to fully expand. For the first time in years, you can take a deep breath while dressed. "How does it feel, ma'am?" Agnes asks as she helps you dress. "Like freedom," you say simply. Your day unfolds with unprecedented ease. You can bend to pick up a dropped handkerchief. You can climb stairs without stopping to catch your breath. You can eat a normal meal without discomfort. Small freedoms, but revolutionary in their impact on your daily life. That evening, you attend a dinner party wearing your new corset beneath a high-necked evening gown. No one notices any difference in your appearance, but you notice the difference in how you feel, alert rather than lightheaded, comfortable rather than in constant pain. Lady Russell is among the guests, and you find a moment to speak privately with her. "You look well," she comments. "There's a new energy about you." "I've been making some changes," you say carefully. "Have you heard of the Rational Dress Society?" Her eyes widen slightly. "I have their pamphlets. Are you?" "I attended a meeting. It was illuminating. This shared secret creates an immediate bond. For the rest of the evening, you and Lady Russell exchange glances whenever the conversation touches on fashion or women's health, conspirators in a gentle revolution. Over the following months, you make additional small changes. You order walking boots with sensible heels. You gradually reduce the weight of your petticoats. You forget to use Belladonna eye drops when not attending important social functions. None of these changes draw particular notice. Your husband, focused on his business and social climbing, hardly registers the subtle evolution in your appearance. As long as you present appropriately at important functions, he has little interest in your daily dress. Your daughters, however, do notice. 14-year-old Eleanor watches you curiously as you move more freely, breathe more easily, seem more comfortable in your own body. "Mother, is your corset different?" she asks one afternoon while you're arranging flowers together. You pause, considering how to respond. This could be a crucial moment in your daughter's life. "Yes," you say simply. "I've found a healthier design that's still quite proper. Would you like to see it?" Eleanor's eyes light up. "Could I have one? My training corset pinches terribly." "I think that could be arranged," you say, your heart swelling with hope. Perhaps Eleanor can avoid the years of discomfort and health problems you've endured. 7-year-old Emma, still blissfully uncorseted, notices even more dramatic changes in her mother. "You can pick me up again?" she exclaims one day when you spontaneously lift her in a hug. "You said your dress wouldn't let you before." "I have better dresses now," you explain, twirling her around in a moment of uncharacteristic playfulness. "Dresses that let me move and breathe and hug my favourite daughters." These small freedoms, breathing, moving, hugging your children, remind you how much has been sacrificed on the altar of fashion. How many moments of joy have been constrained by whalebone and steel, by social expectations and beauty standards that prioritize appearance over health. You continue attending Rational Dress Society meetings, now bringing Eleanor occasionally. The network of like-minded women grows, sharing information, supporting each other's small rebellions, creating a community of resistance against fashion's most harmful dictates. Not every experiment is successful. You try a walking skirt shortened to ankle length for a country ramble and face such shocked stares from neighbours that you retreat to conventional length afterward. You attempt to wear a lighter corset to church only to receive cutting remarks from your mother about letting yourself go. Change comes slowly, with setbacks and compromises, but it comes. The most dramatic moment arrives unexpectedly during a summer visit to your sister's country home. Away from the rigid social scrutiny of London, your sister has adopted some surprisingly progressive ideas. "I've taken up bicycling," she announces one morning at breakfast. "The doctor recommended it for my health, and I've found it wonderfully invigorating." Your husband and brother-in-law exchange skeptical glances. Bicycling is still controversial for women, though becoming more accepted among the more progressive set. But how do you manage in skirts, you ask, genuinely curious. Your sister's eyes twinkle. Come to my room after breakfast, I'll show you. Upstairs, she closes the door and dramatically pulls a garment from her wardrobe, a bicycling outfit with divided skirts, very similar to what you saw at the rational dress meeting. Helen, you didn't. I did, she says defiantly, and it's marvellous. No tangled fabric in the wheels, no dangerous falls, no immodest exposure when mounting or dismounting, just practical, sensible, comfortable cycling. But what does Edward say, you ask, referring to your brother-in-law? He was horrified at first, she admits. But when Dr. Matthews prescribed regular exercise for my nerves, Edward had to concede. Now he barely notices. Would you like to try it? You hesitate. This goes beyond a slightly less restrictive corset or lighter petticoats. This is a visible public deviation from conventional feminine dress. Are you ready for such a step? Yes, you decide. Surprising yourself, I would. An hour later, dressed in borrowed cycling clothes and a health corset, you experience a freedom of movement you haven't known since childhood. The divided skirt allows you to stride naturally, to mount the bicycle without struggle, to pedal without restriction. You and Helen cycle down country lanes, laughing with the sheer joy of physical freedom. The summer air on your face, the ability to breathe deeply, the natural movement of your body. It's intoxicating. This is how we're meant to feel, Helen calls over her shoulder. Not trapped in fabric cages, you can only nod, too overwhelmed with sensation to speak. This is what you've been missing. Not just comfort, but joy in movement, connection with your physical self, the simple human pleasure of a body moving as nature intended. Later, returning to the house, you encounter your husband walking on the lawn. His expression freezes in shock at the sight of you in divided skirts, cheeks flushed from exercise, hair slightly dishevelled from the summer breeze. "Margaret," he says stiffly, "what on earth are you wearing?" For a moment, old habits of deference surface. You nearly stammer an apology, a justification, a promise not to do it again. But something has changed within you. These months of small rebellions, of connection with like-minded women, of gradually reclaiming your physical freedom, they've awakened something long dormant. Cycling clothes, you say simply, recommended by Dr. Matthews for Helen's health. I found the exercise quite invigorating. He frowns, clearly displeased but unsure how to respond to this calm assertion. Medical advice provides a shield he's reluctant to challenge directly. You look unsuitable, he finally says. I trust this is a country experiment only. Of course, you agree smoothly. Just a bit of healthful exercise away from London eyes. This compromise, freedom in private, conformity in public, is one many women of your generation will make. Not a complete revolution, but a step toward it. Not freedom for all women, but small expansions of possibility that future generations can build upon. That evening, changing for dinner with Agnes's help, you reflect on the day's experience. I felt alive, Agnes, you try to explain. Not just comfortable or pain-free, but truly alive in my body. Agnes smiles. That's how people are meant to feel, Mum, not tortured by their clothing. As she helps you into an evening gown, still conventional enough to satisfy social expectations, but worn over your health corset, you think of your daughters, Eleanor, who may have more choices than you had, Emma, who might grow up in a world where women's health matters more than waist measurements. Change comes slowly. Then all at once, you're living in the slow part, the quiet questioning, the small rebellions, the gradual shifts in what women will accept. But you can see the future on the horizon, a future where beauty doesn't require suffering, where fashion serves women rather than constraining them, where your daughters can breathe freely and move naturally through the world. It seems less impossible now because all change begins with an impossible dream nurtured by brave hearts and stubborn minds. Years pass. The calendar turns to a new century. Queen Victoria dies in January 1901 and her son Edward VII assumes the throne. The Victorian era ends, giving way to the Edwardian period, a time of transition, of shifting social norms, of emerging modernity. You've changed with the times, in your own careful way. Your corsets are now the healthier variety, still maintaining a proper silhouette but allowing for natural breathing and movement. Your skirts have risen to ankle length for walking and daily activities. You've even, on special country occasions, borrowed Helen's cycling costume for private afternoon rides. Your daughters have benefited from your quiet rebellion. Eleanor, now 21 and recently married, has never known the extreme restriction of a 19-inch waist. Emma, 14, wears the minimal corsetry required for propriety, but nothing that impedes her natural development or restricts her breathing. But the world is changing in ways beyond fashion. New technologies are entering the home, promising to revolutionize domestic life, bringing both convenience and unexpected dangers. The most marvellous invention, your friend Lady Russell tells you during an afternoon visit. Electric lighting throughout the house. No more dangerous gas flames, no more smoky oil lamps. Just clean, instant light at the touch of a switch. You're intrigued. Your own home still uses gas lighting with all its attendant risks of explosion, fire and toxic fumes. Electric lighting sounds like a miracle. Henry is considering it, you admit, though he worries about the cost and reliability. Frederick was concerned too, Lady Russell says, referring to her husband. But after Mrs. Henderson's curtains caught fire from a gas lamp, he decided electricity was the safer option. Safety is the great selling point of this new technology. Newspapers are full of stories about gas explosions, lamp accidents, and homes burning down. Electric lighting, proponents claim, eliminates these dangers. What the enthusiastic advertisements don't mention are the new dangers electricity brings, dangers few understand in these early days of domestic electrification. You discover this firsthand when your husband finally agrees to have the house wired for electricity. Workers arrive, drilling holes, running wires, installing strange new fixtures. The process is disruptive and expensive, but the promise of modern convenience seems worth it. The future, my dear, Henry says proudly when the installation is complete. No progressive household can be without electricity now. The electric lights are indeed miraculous. Clear, steady illumination without heat, smoke, or odour. You're particularly relieved to have them in the nursery, where Emma's reading habit had always made you nervous with oil lamps near bedding. But the lights are just the beginning. Once electricity enters the home, a flood of new appliances follows, each promising to modernise housework and improve domestic life. The first is an electric kettle, a modern marvel that boils water without a stove or flame. Agnes is delighted with it, exclaiming over the time saved in morning tea preparation. Be careful with the cord, the salesman had warned when delivering it. Keep it away from water and don't let it fray. You're diligent about these precautions, but not everyone understands the dangers. You hear about Mrs. Chamberlain's maid, who received a nasty shock when using their electric kettle with wet hands. She survived, but the incident reveals how little people understand about this powerful new force they've invited into their homes. Next comes an electric iron, heavier than traditional flat irons, but more consistent in temperature and requiring no heating on the stove. Mind you don't leave it facing down, Agnes cautions the housemaids. Mrs. Littleton's iron burned right through her ironing board and started a fire when her maid was called away. The convenience of these devices is undeniable, but they bring new risks that weren't present with older technologies. Traditional dangers were visible and understood. Fire burns, gas smells before it explodes. Steam is visibly hot. Electricity's dangers are invisible, silent, and poorly understood. The most dramatic illustration of this comes with your newest acquisition, an electric refrigerator, replacing the traditional icebox in the kitchen. No more ice deliveries, no more melting and dripping, the salesman enthuses. Constant cold temperature for safer food storage. What he doesn't emphasize is that early refrigerators used toxic gases like ammonia or methyl chloride as refrigerants. If these leak, which they often do, they can cause respiratory distress, skin burns, or even death. You learn this when Cook comes running upstairs one afternoon, face pale with fear. "Mom, there's a terrible smell from that new ice chest, and the kitchen maid's taken ill." You rush downstairs to find the kitchen maid, young Sally, slumped in a chair, breathing in shallow gasps. The air in the kitchen has a strange, acrid quality that burns your throat. "Open all the windows," you command the hovering staff, "and someone fetch Dr. Matthews immediately." Sally recovers with fresh air and rest, but the incident leaves everyone shaken. The refrigerator company sends a repairman who identifies a leak in the cooling system. "Happens sometimes with the new models," he says casually. "Better now than in winter when you can't open the windows, eh?" His cavalier attitude horrifies you. This appliance could have killed your staff, yet it's treated as a minor inconvenience. You insist on additional safety measures and regular inspections before allowing the refrigerator back into operation. As more electric appliances enter your home, a vacuum cleaner, a toaster, an electric fan, you become increasingly concerned about their safety. Manufacturers seem to prioritize innovation over protection, rushing new devices to market before they're fully tested. "Did you hear about the Harringtons?" Lady Russell asks during a tea visit. "Their new electric heater caused a fire. The wiring in the walls couldn't handle the current." These stories circulate among homeowners, creating a growing awareness of electricity's hidden dangers. Yet there are few regulations governing these new devices, no standard safety measures, no consistent quality control. The most alarming development comes when you visit Eleanor in her new home. Proud of her modernity, she shows you her latest acquisition, an electric tablecloth with built-in wiring for plugging in multiple appliances. "You can use the toaster, kettle, and coffee pot all at once," she demonstrates. "Isn't it clever?" You watch in horror as she casually handles electrical connections with damp hands from washing the teacups. The plugs spark each time she connects them, and the wiring within the tablecloth feels warm to the touch. "Eleanor," you say carefully, "have you had any problems with this? Overheating, perhaps?" "It gets a bit warm," she admits, "but the salesman said that's normal." You think of the Harringtons' fire, of Sally gasping for breath, of Mrs. Chamberlain's shocked maid. These new dangers surrounding your daughter terrify you more than any corset or toxic cosmetic. "Perhaps you should ask James to have it inspected," you suggest, referring to her husband. "Just to be safe." Eleanor looks mildly annoyed at your interference, much as you once did with your own mother's advice. The cycle continues, each generation thinking the previous one too cautious, too old-fashioned, not understanding that experience brings wisdom about dangers, even new ones. A month later, Eleanor writes with news that vindicates your concern. Their electric tablecloth overheated while unattended, burning through the table beneath and nearly starting a house fire. It was discovered just in time by a vigilant housemaid. "You were right, Mother," Eleanor's letter concludes. "These new devices need more caution than the salesmen suggest." This pattern repeats across society, excitement about new technology followed by sobering realizations about its dangers. Newspapers that once celebrated every electric innovation now include columns about accidents, injuries, and deaths related to these modern marvels. By 1910, public concern has grown strong enough to prompt action. Electrical safety standards begin to emerge. Companies start advertising safety features alongside convenience. Consumer awareness grows about proper handling of electrical appliances. Have you seen this? You ask your husband one morning, showing him a new magazine called Which, dedicated to testing consumer products for safety and effectiveness. Seems useful, he acknowledges, though I'm not sure we need a magazine to tell us what to buy. It's not just about what to buy, but about holding manufacturers accountable, you explain, making sure they don't sell us dangerous products. Henry looks at you with mild surprise. You've become quite the consumer advocate, Margaret, a far cry from the young woman who uncomplainingly wore whatever fashion dictated. You smile, recognizing the truth in his observation. People change. Society changes. I'd like to think we learn from our mistakes. The journey from unquestioning acceptance to informed skepticism has been long, both personally and societally. You think back to your younger self, laced into that 19-inch corset, face covered in poisonous cosmetics, accepting it all because that's what women did. Now you question, you investigate, you make informed choices, and you teach your daughters to do the same. Emma, blossoming into young womanhood, particularly absorbs these lessons. Unlike you at her age, she reads medical journals on women's health, attends lectures on hygiene and safety, questions everything from fashion to food to household technology. Mrs. Pankhurst says women must take control of their own bodies and lives, she tells you one afternoon, referring to the suffragette leader. That includes what we wear, what we put on our skin, and what devices we allow in our homes. You marvel at her confidence, her assumption that she has the right to make these decisions for herself. This is the true revolution, not just the specific changes in corsets or cosmetics or household technology, but the fundamental shift in how women view their relationship to these things, not as passive recipients of whatever society dictates, but as active decision makers with the right to prioritize their own health and safety. One evening, sorting through old belongings, you come across that first pamphlet from the Rational Dress Society. Its pages are yellowed now, its revolutionary ideas largely mainstream. Few women still tight-lace their corsets to dangerous dimensions. Few still use Belladonna eye drops or arsenic face powders. The worst excesses of Victorian fashion have faded away, replaced by the more practical, if still formal, styles of the Edwardian era. "What's that, grandmother?" asks Eleanor's daughter Charlotte, now 7 and visiting for the weekend. "A piece of history, darling, from when women had to fight for the right to breathe comfortably." Charlotte looks confused. Why wouldn't they be allowed to breathe? How do you explain to this child, growing up in a world of ankle-length skirts and relaxed corsetry, the extremes that were once commonplace? How do you convey the physical suffering, the health damage, the daily discomfort that women once accepted as the price of beauty? Fashion was different then, you say simply. People didn't understand how harmful some practices were. "Like those electrical fires Mrs. Hopkins talked about?" Charlotte asks, referring to a neighbour whose faulty wiring had caused a minor house fire, where people didn't know the dangers. "Exactly like that," you agree, impressed by her quick connection. "We learn and improve over time. That's how progress happens." Charlotte nods solemnly, then runs off to play. You watch her go, marvelling at her freedom of movement, her natural posture, her uncompressed body. She'll never know what it's like to have her ribs bent by steel and whalebone, to struggle for breath in formal attire, to feel her internal organs shifting from compression. Your mother, still alive though quite elderly, represents the other end of the spectrum. Visiting her, you notice she still wears her corset as she always has, still uses outdated cosmetics despite their known dangers, still views electric appliances with deep suspicion. "These modern girls," she clucks, watching Emma's confident stride across the garden. No proper posture anymore. No discipline. You see only health and natural grace, but you don't argue. Your mother is the product of her time, just as you are of yours, and Charlotte of hers. Each generation makes its own compromises between convention and freedom, tradition and innovation, beauty and health. As you prepare for bed that night, in a modern home with electric lighting, wearing nightclothes designed for comfort rather than restriction, breathing freely and moving naturally, you reflect on how far things have come in your lifetime. The dangerous beauty practices of the Victorian era have largely disappeared. The worst electrical hazards of early home electrification are being addressed through regulation and education. Women are increasingly valued for more than decorative purposes. Their health and comfort given at least some consideration in fashion and technology. Not a complete revolution, but progress nonetheless. Small changes accumulating over time, creating a different world for your granddaughter than the one you inhabited at her age. As you drift towards sleep, comfortable in both body and mind, you think of that impossible dream you once had. Of women free to breathe, move, and exist naturally in their bodies. It seems less impossible now, more a work in progress, a journey still underway, but with significant distance already covered. Your contribution was small, personal choices, private rebellions, quiet advocacy, but multiplied across thousands of women making similar choices, these small acts created meaningful change. The safer, healthier world your granddaughter inhabits is built on these accumulated decisions. The path from Victorian restriction to modern freedom wasn't straight or simple. New technologies brought new dangers alongside their benefits. Each solution created fresh problems to solve. Progress came unevenly, with setbacks and complications, but progress came nonetheless, and continues to come as each generation questions, challenges, and improves upon the practices of the last. Your breathing deepens as sleep approaches. No corset restricts your lungs. No toxic chemicals burn your skin. No dangerous electrical connections threaten your safety. Small freedoms that once seemed impossible, now taken for granted. Perhaps that's the nature of progress. Today's radical ideas becoming tomorrow's common sense. Perhaps your granddaughter will someday tell her granddaughter about the barbaric practices of her youth, marveling at how far things have come. As you drift into dreams, your mind releases the story of beauty and peril, of Victorian dangers and Edwardian transitions. Your body rests comfortably, free from the constraints that once bound it. History unfolds in its slow, imperfect way, each generation making its own unique compromises between tradition and innovation, safety and progress, beauty and health. Your breathing deepens, your muscles relax, your mind quiets. Sleep comes easily in this modern world of relative comfort and safety, a world you helped create through countless small acts of rebellion and advocacy. Rest well in that knowledge as you drift deeper into peaceful sleep.